moving into the kind of practical bit of making content creation, regular content creation, more to the point, you know, the likes of blogging and that core content, fitting it into your life, because I think that's, you know, the thing that puts people off creating content is that it just feels overwhelming. It just feels like there is a huge amount of things to do, and like you could actually, you know, obviously content can be a full-time job, but you could be, you know, do it all day, every day. So in order to fit it into your life, planning it in advance really is the first thing to do. I like to plan a month ahead, but at least 2 to 4 weeks ahead, to give yourself a little bit of you know, space to think ahead and give yourself time to, you know, to research, to create the content. Like I say, you know, start with your core content and decide, okay, how many, say if you're working, you know, I think it's working in the calendar month is the simplest way to do it. How many pieces of core content do I want to publish a month? I think one a month is a really good start, you know, just to give you an idea of how long it takes you to create a piece of content like that. You know, how much energy it requires of you, how much time, all that, those sorts of things. So maybe you can start off by just with one and see how you get on. You know, one every week is obviously amazing. I don't think you should really do any more than 2 a week. Again, that's a lot. I don't think anybody DIYing their content is going to be doing 2 chunky pieces of content a week. If you are, well done. You will see, you will definitely see you know, a payoff from that. So once you've decided how many, then you can think about your topic. And again, we previously talked about a few ideas for topics, and then decide the date that you'd like to publish that. Then once you've decided your core content, you can think about your satellite content. So that is your little mini pieces of content that you're going to pull out from that core piece of content, because obviously that gives you numerous pieces of content. So whereas you might post one core piece of content, hopefully that's given you 3 chunky bits, at least one, but possibly a maximum of 3 chunky bits of content that you can then chop into various bits of micro content for your social media. So decide, you know, do you want you know, a couple of posts on each platform per week? Do you want to post something every day? Do you only want to post once or twice a week? You know, decide what works for you, and don't be afraid to experiment as well. Then you need to create a detailed checklist of tasks for each content piece. So, you know, use this to brainstorm, you know, write out all your ideas. What do you need to do to create that piece of content? Who do you need to speak to? What information do you need? Is it just a case of sitting down and emptying your head onto a bit of paper, or do you need to make some calls? Do you need to collaborate with anyone on that piece of content? Just write it out bit by bit by bit. If you were, imagine you're trying to describe to someone else, give someone else a little instruction sheet of how to put together this piece of content, write down everything so that you can tick off. And it also gives you an idea of sort of like mini deadlines to work to, which I, you know, talk about next. So put the publish dates onto the calendar. And by that, I mean the date that you're going to publish your core piece of content, and the several dates that you're going to post then your satellite content, your social media content that comes off of that piece of core content. And then after that, you can slot in the deadlines for your checklist items. So when do you have to get each checklist item done before you will have that piece of content either published or scheduled to be published? Hopefully that all makes sense. So then moving on to batching, obviously. Batching is, again, a way of avoiding content just being something that you're plugging away at every single day. I advise it's a really good idea to designate, you know, either just, you know, one day a week, a fortnight, a month, or maybe several days or half days, whatever works for you, but designate, you know, this day or this half day is all about creating my content. Put that on the calendar. That can be a paper calendar. I use Google Calendar quite a lot. I will also show you some online platforms that I use for planning content and you know, for managing deadlines and things like that as well. again, with batching, batch similar tasks together, I find is good for managing, you know, your reserves of energy. So things like, you know, have a day or half a day or even a few hours dedicated to, you know, the research element, maybe photography if you're creating your own images, you know, phone calls if you're collaborating with someone or interviewing, or, you know, doing some person-to-person research, and then the actual writing or content creation itself. And there's other ways that you can batch as well. You can batch by topic. So maybe you might want to spend one portion of the day just working on one piece of content or one type of content, and then move on to the next. Or you might want to, you know, group your content calls together with your business calls, and just that might be the best use of your time as well. So, and then we finally move on to the scheduling aspect of it. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest are all, you can schedule content to all of those platforms in advance. And I don't think there's any limit actually as to how far in advance. You can literally plan content months in advance, if you know, if you so desire. Excuse me. Facebook actually allows you to schedule content natively, so that's within Facebook itself. I recommend that the best way to do this is through Facebook Creator Studio. And that's the link there for it if you want to take a note or take a screenshot there. The reason I like it is because if you have a Facebook page and an Instagram account, you can link them together through Facebook Creator Studio, and you can access both of those platforms and schedule content to them. You can schedule content to Facebook feed or Facebook pages, sorry. Your Instagram feed and your IGTV, unfortunately, you can't yet schedule Instagram stories natively, but I think that is something that's coming. And just while I remember, there is actually an app called Storito, Storrito. There is a charge for it. I don't think it's free, but I have used it for scheduling stories, and it is very effective. It's a little bit clunky, but it does work very well. So, and then the other types of content, or the other platforms, sorry, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, you can only schedule to them, as far as I'm aware, at the minute, through third-party apps. So that's basically an app that is not, you know, owned by or within the platform itself. These are literally just some examples of, you know, the biggest, most well-known ones, but there are so many social media schedulers. The best thing really to do is to go by personal recommendation, or simply just to search a few and try them out for yourselves. Most of them will offer free trials. They have sort of limited use for where they won't, you know, ask for any money from you. There's, you know, there's free accounts, but there's very limited amounts of content you can publish from them. But it might be, you know, depending on what you decide is the right amount of content for you, you know, a free scheduler might be all you need. Let me see. Before I go on to the question bit, I was going to show, there was a few things that I wanted to actually show you now that I can come out of this without worrying whether it will die on me. So, I wonder if I can move you out of my way. Bear with me again, folks. There we go, that's better. So what I wanted to do was actually show you a little bit of my own content planning, just how that looks for me, just to give you some ideas. I use a project management tool called Asanna. You might have heard of it. You might have heard of similar things. The likes of Trello, Notion are quite well-known tools that do, you know, very similar things. So obviously, because, you know, I work with clients and I'm managing multiple strands of content, I use a project manager. But again, you might want to do this because you can use it to manage your business as well. So Asanna is organized into teams. I create a team for each new client. There's nothing within this that is, you know, private or not publicly available in any way. It just, you know, basically describes content that's being published. So it's okay for me to show you this. And then within the team, it's organized into projects. And as you can see, I've got 2 projects there. And then within a project, you have either a board, this is like a Kanban board setup, or you can also see it in lists. And on your board or your lists, you create tasks. And I just thought I would show you, just a real life example of how you can plan out your content and organize it in advance, and create templates and just sort of save some time for yourself, really. So this is quite a good example of that. So I create a template task like this. So I would duplicate this task when I want to create a new task for, an article. You can see examples of them on the board there. And then I've pre-populated it with a little list of subtasks, which represent a checklist of tasks that need to be completed in order for this piece of content to be created and successfully published. And within each of these subtasks, you can add a due date, and you can also assign it to people. So again, if you're working with another freelancer or maybe an intern or a member of staff, you can assign it to them to do. They can maybe assign it to you if they need approval and things like that. So you can use it to collaborate and communicate. And again, the due dates are quite good for creating a timeline of the work that you've got to get done in order to get this piece of content published. And then obviously you create the overall deadline for the piece of content, the publish date that you want this piece of content to go out as the due date for the task there. And there's also a calendar view. If you go out to the main overview, the calendar shows you basically every single task. So it shows all the meetings and things like that, and all the the little subtasks and all those little mini deadlines. But then I've also created another board there basically that just has the publish dates of the main bits of content. So it's an easier view. It's not cluttered with everything. You can just see what, when content is going out, but in this very visual kind of calendar layout. You can also use the likes of Google Calendar or Outlook Calendar for your content planning, those dates that I mentioned, planning out your, when you want to publish certain bits of content and all of the little, mini deadlines that lead up to that. Just something as simple as, a Google Calendar or even a paper planner is really quite effective for that. And then I just wanted to pop in and show you if I'd be able to reach it from here. I don't know if I can actually move that out of the way. There we go. Another tool that I use, I mentioned this, it is a tool for scheduling social media content. Again, I have permission to show this. There's nothing, private or private information or anything like that. But it's just a really nice demonstration of, how you can use one of these third-party tools, not just to post, to schedule content, but you can also use it as a planning tool. So as you can see, there's a calendar view and that shows this week. You can also see the month view, which is quite nice to get a nice spread and an overview. It shows all the different bits of content you have posted or scheduled to go out on all the different platforms. In the week view, sorry, my computer's getting very slow. I'll probably crash off any minute. These are campaigns, and if you click into those, they're quite useful for logging in any relevant seasonal content that you might want to be aware of and plan content around. And I also use the notes function, which is here, just to plan the individual pieces of content for the day. So just a little reminder of, the content topic we've agreed. And then I think I just wanted to look at a few examples of what I was talking about on home pages being like your shop front and the journey you take your buyer on there, and then some good examples of about pages as well. So it'll be funny. I don't actually know everyone who's watching at the minute, so it'll be funny if there's one of these creative businesses is watching. So the first one, the about page, obviously, you know, like I talked about having you know, a good bit of written content as your, you know, your shop window, if you like. Seedhead Arts are a local kind of community or like arts organization, and as you can see, they don't have a huge amount of you know, written content, but it's still really, really effective at, you know, the up here street art events artists. You know, that's what they do, and you can find out more by clicking there. And they have a video. Obviously, they're an arts organization, they're very visual, so you know, that works well for them. And effectively those links really act as their call to action, if you like. A slightly different approach is Ali Hart, who's a local artist, painter, and again, you can see what I'm talking about, that this piece of content, you know, you instantly know if you're here for, you know, a beautiful painting, or you know, someone who's, you know, if you're looking for color, a pop of color to your home, you're looking for a gift for someone you love. You know, she's covered all of those bases right from the start. You know, you're in the right place if you're looking for you know, her work. She also goes on about, you know, she teaches online art workshops. You know, it's a really comprehensive overview of everything she does, all in one place, really quickly hooks you in. Scroll below to see all. Thanks for browsing my work. There's, you know, there's call to actions there, and she's even got, you know, video content as well. And just below there's, you know, the shop, which is clickable, so there's a really strong call to action there. Again, it doesn't seem to kind of vain. Just to compare, you know, my homepage. Again, I'm no designer, as you can clearly see, certainly not a web designer. But the first thing you see on my page is copywriting, content, and editorial. So I would hope that would give you a pretty clear idea of what it is I do. And then when you scroll down, this is, you know, kind of an example of what I was talking about when you think about the questions that people ask and the problems they're trying to solve. And it's actually quite effective, a tool to ask questions. When you pose a question, a written question to someone, they can't help but start to look for an answer. It's kind of a natural human thing that we do. So you're sort of prompting them to answer your question by posing a question. And again, if you're being informed by that keyword research, and you're asking questions that are pretty close to the mark on why they're there, the problems they're trying to solve, then this should hopefully be effective. And so again, that's my shop front. This is the sell bit that I talked about. You know, you talk about what makes you unique. So this is a little bit about, you know, what makes me a little bit different. And then I'm selling what I'm doing. I'm sort of going into the kind of, yes, you want me to work for you, part of the pitch. And then click below to find out more. That's the call to action that we spoke about. And then finally, just two more to show you examples of about pages and slightly different but really effective approaches to those. Rufus Media, lovely lady I've worked with in the past, and this is a really good example of an about page that doesn't contain a huge amount of necessarily personal information about Ruth. You know, she talks about her journey into self-employment. She talks mostly about her work, in fact, pretty exclusively about her work on this page. But she still manages to keep the tone really friendly and has, you know, really good, strong images as well, which is important on that page. So that's an example of, you know, telling the story of your business without necessarily going into, you know, elaborating on a personal profile or, you know, profiling the individual themselves. And then finally, Astral Fibers is a local maker and very talented and makes, I don't know whether it's macrame or macrame, maybe somebody can tell me how to pronounce that properly. But her about page is very personal by contrast. You know, there's lots of, you know, the second word is I'm, you know, and she's talking about herself as an artist. And then there's just a lot of, you know, quite emotional and personal language. So you very quickly get the idea that this business is very personal to this person, obviously, and that their personal values are, you know, kind of woven into this business. So that's just another example